Okay, so it's post FOMC, the federal funds rate unchanged, but Bitcoin did have a very, very volatile press conference. So we were live streaming the entire event. Thank you so much for everybody that tuned in. It was absolutely fantastic. For future streams, make sure to turn on the notification bell, subscribe, leave a like while you're at it. But we had a double bottom, we had the target 59K, and after hitting this place, Bitcoin had a reduction in price. I mentioned that approximately after an hour from the press conference, Bitcoin does tend to have a decline. So we hit support and we formed a descending broadening wedge. Now, just a couple of hours ago in the morning, I shared in the Crypto Kids Telegram that Bitcoin is forming a descending broadening wedge, and our bullish target is going to be the 59.2K level. So Bitcoin, just a couple of hours after, we broke towards the upside, and now we're sitting at the current price target. So what is going to be happening next for Bitcoin? That's the primary focus of today's video. We have a couple of moving averages that Bitcoin saw. Well, we saw one test, and will that be enough to push Bitcoin back towards the upside, or is it still game over? Are we still looking at a 52K possibility? But apart from the technical analysis, we do have a couple of breaking news, which I will start off with just as an exception for today because it is pretty significant. So we saw outflows from BlackRock. If you've been watching the past 2-3 videos, including the live stream, I was calling outflows for today. So BlackRock, I was calling the outflows, and we did see it at $36.9 million. Now, before you panic, I am actually happy on how the price held up after we saw these outflows. I did believe that after seeing BlackRock outflows, the market would further panic and we could continue crashing towards the downside. But it is an absolutely beautiful thing that Bitcoin did not get phased by it, and we are keeping healthy. So the reason why we did end up seeing outflows on BlackRock was because we fell down consistently for approximately 5 to 6 days. People were selling continuously, so they had to destroy shares, leading them to sell their Bitcoin. But Nate put it beautifully here. I mean, if we look at the gold ETFs, the BlackRock gold ETF in particular, we had $1 billion worth of outflows this year. And regardless, gold is up 16% year to date. So it's not something that influences the markets a lot. James Seyfarth, in our interview, he said that, look, outflows and inflows are going to happen. In the long term, the inflows are usually exponential, so it goes up in a parabola. But the outflows don't really impact the market. I think when the ETF hype was the only narrative driving the Bitcoin momentum upwards, yes, it was kind of creating this loop where inflows created huge price moves towards the upside, and then outflows created huge price moves towards the downside. I think we've escaped out of this loop, and if you realize, I mean, Bitcoin has fallen like 16% in a matter of just a few days. Now, this is not a full comprehensive breakdown since January 11th, but what I notice now is that when Bitcoin dumps, the outflows that we experience are way, 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 way less significant compared to when Bitcoin increases and the amount of inflows that come in. I think that is, again, a very, very bullish sign. And I'm super excited that, even if we had $500-something million in outflows, I think the market is not getting phased by it in the immediate short term. So I think this is a very good sign. Now, going on to different ETFs, we saw that the Hong Kong spot ETFs had $292 million worth of inflows, and this is wrong. Guys and girls, this was preceding. So the ETF issuers purchased this Bitcoin by themselves before the launch itself. So Hong Kong spot ETFs are not seeing this many inflows technically because this was done before the launch through the ETF issuers themselves. But before I continue with the news, now we can jump back into the Bitcoin analysis and have a look at the short-term time frame. So if Bitcoin continues pumping from here, I think Bitcoin does actually want to retest back into the 61.5K territory. I think the price action is calling a retraction, or actually, a push towards the upside to hit this kind of resistance level. So if Bitcoin does continue pumping here, I think this range here between 60.8 to 61.7 could be possible, but keep in mind, I am still bearish in the midterm, so if we do end up seeing a retest, I think Bitcoin can continue dumping towards the downside, but the weekly candle close is super important. If Bitcoin closes this weekly candle below 59.5K, then the parabolic SAR sell is going to continue, right? The parabolic SAR is super important for me because in the prior all-time highs, when we did see a signal flashing for parabolic SAR sell, the price of Bitcoin entered a bear market. So unless the price of Bitcoin does not close between or below 59.5, so if we do see a closure below 59.5, then I'm bearish. That's it. I think Bitcoin will dump back down to 50K. And I made an incredible interview with a very, very famed analyst in the traditional finance space, which I will be posting tomorrow. So stay tuned. He kind of calls for a similar thing. So Bitcoin did, yes, it did hold the 20-period moving average on the weekly time frame. I think this is significant. That is why I'm saying Bitcoin can potentially pull back into this region just to find that support on the 20-period moving average. But still in the midterm, which is in my opinion the weekly time frame, I think Bitcoin can continue and find support at the $50,000 to $52,000 levels, as that is where a lot of demand for Bitcoin is, and we have a lot of indicators and oscillators pointing towards that price level. So if you are looking to buy the dip, I think right now, 59K, beautiful buy the dip opportunity. 56K, like I mentioned yesterday and everybody was laughing in the comments, that was also a beautiful buy the dip opportunity. I think 52K will be the final one. I know I've said 47K, but 47K is definitely also possible. You know, retesting this March 2022 resistance would be beautiful, but you know, let's see what happens, right? Let's see what happens. I think 47K, if it does come true, it is more of a selfish request, more so than a massive probability. On this chart where we looked at the 2015 support resistance line, I said yesterday that Bitcoin will likely find support at this bull and bear market support band because we tend to do this in every halving cycle. So that is exactly what Bitcoin has done. If we do not dip below like 54, 52K, then we're good. I think Bitcoin can still continue its trajectory towards the upside. But you know, we do look at the Fibonacci retracement, and the reason why I was saying 52K has a lot of oscillators, indicators, different technical analysis patterns lining up all in one place is because the Fibonacci retracement, the golden pocket, is also sitting in between 52K. And in the previous videos, I mentioned that the volume, the VRVP, is also sitting at 52K. I would not be surprised if Bitcoin dumps to those levels. I mean, comparatively, that would be a 29% drop. And in halving cycles, Bitcoin does have like 30%, 40% corrections. So I think it would still be healthy. It would be beautiful for Bitcoin. And I will be going heavy long if Bitcoin does hit those levels. I'm still in a long position that we've entered together, by the way, at 43K. But at this point, I'll probably open like a $200,000 position. So stay tuned. I will be looking into doing that. But the golden pocket would be beautiful. I think that could be the final buy the dip opportunity apart from $47,000. If we look at the stock market, the reason why Bitcoin is also rebounding today is because the S&P is also seeing a slight upwards tick in price action. Currently, the price of Bitcoin and the traditional stocks are heavily correlated in price. So if you want to look at Bitcoin and where Bitcoin can be headed, then I would definitely have a particular analysis set on the S&P 500 at the same time. This is devastating. So this is not a random meme coin. It's not a random altcoin. This is cocoa. So for the past few months, we've been following two different kind of meme coin commodities because commodities are going through the roof. And those two are cocoa and orange juice. Funnily enough, cocoa is having an absolute catastrophic fall in price. After like since 2020, after seeing like 430% an increase in price for all the chocolate lovers, this was devastating. We are finally seeing a dip, and a huge dip, but very, very funnily enough, orange juice is not experiencing anything like that. As a matter of fact, we are forming a bullish pennant, so that is rather bullish, but I just wanted to mention that because I think it's super funny. Imagine orange juice goes to like the moon. That would be crazy. It's already at the moon, but imagine if it continues higher. I still have a couple of boxes of orange juice, by the way. I was not kidding when I said I bought a lot of orange juice boxes back when we were joking about it. But let's go on into the rest of the breaking news. I do have another concerning thing, actually. So if you've been watching, or not watching, but kind of reading my research reports, you would be familiar with this graphic. I posted this a long time ago over on Twitter. I think it was This was posted like at least a month or so ago. And this graphic looks at the long-term and short-term buyers of Bitcoin. It's usually a very good indicator of a top or bottom of a cycle because, at the top, long-term holders tend to decrease their holdings, whereas short-term holders are at their peak in terms of how much Bitcoin they hold. And until they curve towards the downside or towards the upside, depending on which one you're looking at, then we can assume that the actual price movement of Bitcoin or that particular asset can continue heading towards the upside. Now, if we look at the updated version of this chart, it's a bit concerning because you can see that these short-term accumulators of Bitcoin are starting to curve, right? And the long-term holders have already been selling for a quite extended amount of time. This is not a good thing at all. And keep in mind, the price of Bitcoin here is still considered to be at the $60,000 level. So it's not updated to the latest prices. And this could be an indicator of a short-term price top in terms of on-chain analysis. So I wanted to point that out because I've not been talking about on-chain data for a while on this channel, and I really do want to bring it back. Now, going into the Fear and Greed Index, in the live stream yesterday, we were sitting at like 50 or 60, I think it was at like 60 something, and I was calling for a 40 today in terms of fear in the market. Again, I think it's a beautiful opportunity to dollar cost average into Bitcoin because the time to buy and accumulate is always in a time of fear. But looking at this, currently we're seeing BNP Paribas, one of the biggest, in fact, the second largest bank in Europe, they have announced that they bought some BlackRock, no, not BlackRock particularly, but they do hold some Bitcoin ETFs. Going in towards May 15th, that is the final deadline for all institutions to post their Q1 holdings of different assets. We will be seeing more and more Bitcoin ETFs being held in institutions. As a matter of fact, currently I think like 155 different advisors and institutions have said that which hold over $100 million. They've said that they hold Bitcoin, and Bloomberg's prediction was like 7 or 8. So 155 before the final deadline is kind of absolutely mind-blowing. So I think the long-term future for Bitcoin is definitely very much positive. And I think we will be going into the 100K region. And it's super important not to flip completely bearish right now because I think that the market is not completely bearish. That's just not the situation. Yes, eventually the markets will go into a huge recession, but I still think that the S&P 500 and the Dixie and all other assets, they still have at least another year or so to kind of go into that recessionary phase. At least let's wait until the elections. Going into the elections, the market will continue to perform most likely, but after Trump goes into office, then we may be seeing some struggles as he wants to do a lot of things, and the things he wants to do in the macro term will impact the economy in a very negative way. And the kind of Bitcoin manager at BlackRock, he's saying that sovereign wealth funds and pensions are all interested in buying Bitcoin. So again, another very bullish thing in the macro future. In terms of capitulation, people are asking, okay, what's happening with the short-term buyers, the mid-term buyers, the long-term buyers? When are they going to be capitulated? And the answer is, for the Bitcoin ETF buyers, the average buy-in is between 57 to 58K. So currently they're on a very small profit, and falling below 57, 58 would cause all Bitcoin ETF, well, not all of them, but on average for them to be at a loss. So I don't think the big institutions will allow this to happen. So they'll probably try their best to keep the price above these levels as much as possible. So that's why I'm saying, even if we're expecting a 52K Bitcoin, now is also a potential good buy the dip opportunity, as we're still trying to be in the base 4 of the parabolic structure, but I talked more about those on previous videos, so I won't get into that because that could literally be an entire video. And if we look at the average me and you, the average Joe buying Bitcoin, we can see that the 1 week to 1 month holders are already in a huge loss. The 1 month to 3 month holders, they're also in a loss. But still, the macro holders, the whales and the OGs in Bitcoin, they're still in huge profits. So yes, the weekends may be selling. And the reason why we're getting this huge fear in the market and people saying it's over is because all of these new entrants are creating fear and saying, they're in a loss, obviously. So they're saying, screw crypto, I'm leaving. But, the long-term guys already know that this has been a huge increase in price. And of course, a reduction was due, so we're not really worried at all. And the final thing to go through is that tomorrow we have the unemployment data. Very funnily enough, very funnily enough, we saw Powell, or we actually heard Powell say live that he doesn't think the stag or deflation is a possibility. But that is kind of outrageous because we're seeing the amount of new US job openings dropping to incredible low levels ever since 3 years. So the amount of new jobs available, they're at drastic lows. We're seeing full-time jobs actually reducing, right? I think it was down 6,000 the last time, and part-time jobs is what is carrying the US non-farm employment rate. So it is just completely skewed data. They're choosing and they're mixing and matching things to look good. So unemployment, the employment data, completely trash at this point in time. People with more than 2 or more jobs is increasing to all-time high levels. People cannot sustain their lives, so they need to pick up another job and get an extra income. And don't even get me started on the amount of inflation we're seeing across normal goods and services, especially in food prices. That's why cocoa is at an all-time high. That's why orange juice is at an all-time high. Butter is at the highest level since God knows when. So these are all terrible signs, and it is literally the definition of a stagflation. And in a time like this, the stock market would be falling pretty heavily. So just a heads up on that. But for the rest of these, I will go through on the next video tomorrow. So stay tuned. I have a very cool interview coming up at the same time. It will all be incredible. So yeah, just wait for tomorrow. Leave a like on this video, subscribe, and again, don't forget to turn on the notification bell to be alerted as soon as this video is up. But guys and girls, have a great night, and I'll be seeing you all very shortly. So take care, everyone, and bye-bye.